Hey everyone, you're watching Ash on Comics, and my name's Ash, and today is a comic movie. First one on my channel. Um, I've never done a video movie review. I used to do written reviews back in the days of MySpace. I used to be like this little amateur film reviewer. I used to have my own little, MySpace would have a blog set up, and so I had a whole movie blog thing that I used to do and write movie reviews. Anyways, I didn't want to take time to write a review on this. I've actually spent a while trying to get video recording software to work, which I haven't really ever used before either for the purposes of YouTube. So I've been fuddling around with this for probably a good couple hours. But to the movie, I just wanted to give an off-the-cuff kind of my reactions about it. It's not going to be a formalized review, but I will talk about it, and it'll be like a review. I'm not going to take time to put it down into words, and it's just going to be me, my normal blathering. So I've been looking forward to this film for a while. No lies, I have this theory, not a theory, but just this hypothesis of movies that when it's a big franchise like this, like Marvel, I'm going to use Marvel as an example. The bigger the character or the IP or whatever, the more restriction the bigwigs upstairs put, and they're more controlling. And sometimes when it's an unexpected film or a film that's no one just is like a throwaway film, it's like, we're gonna make this, but we don't expect this. This is not our biggest franchise, whatever. They give the creators a lot more leniency because they don't expect much anyway. And because of this, when Guardians of the Galaxy was about a year out, I was making this prediction. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be this might be the best Marvel movie, I bet you, when it comes out. And I made this prediction based on that hypothesis of what I just told you, and also combining with the idea that I just also thought that Guardians of the Galaxy didn't work so much on paper, but I thought visually, it would have this Star Wars appeal, in space and characters going off and seeing strange aliens and having this grand adventure. Well, Aquaman, fast forward to that, is a similar type thing. It's like DC's bastard, redheaded stepchild. And I don't mean any offense if anyone's a big Aquaman fan or whatever, but let's face facts. He gets the he gets the short end of the stick. Like, he's Aquaman, and to the mainstream normies in the world, it's like, what? He talks to fish, he swims, like, you got Batman, Superman, you got these other characters, and I was the same way. And by the way, this talk, if you haven't watched my channel before, I am a DC novice. I'm a longtime comic fan. I collected comics like heavily through the mid 80s, mid 90s. Big Marvel fanboy. Kind of got out during the crash. The crash happened, right before the crash, and just went on to just have other things in my life. Not that I hate comics or I never got out of comics. It's just there's just other things to do, and comics just started losing interest to me at the time because the quality was dipping. And anyways, it's a long story, but I kept my ear to comics for the past 25 years. Obviously I see all the comic movies, and I just try to keep abreast of the lore and the culture because I am a fan still. Just I wasn't an active fan. But I never was a DC fan, which is really weird because my first experience in comic books was Super Friends. Or not comic books, but, comic book heroes. And I loved it. As a little kid, I loved Super Friends. So you would think that, like, when I got into comic books, several years later, that I'd be like, oh yeah, let's get some Batman comics, Superman comics. But their characters didn't interest me. I always thought the characters were silly, especially when I had got into comics. I got into X-Men, and X-Men was the coolest thing on the block. And Marvel, in my opinion, I just think Marvel does cooler characters. And I know it's a matter of perspective. Some people really gravitate towards the DC style, which is the character that you their characters are people you would aspire to be but never could be, the people you look up to. Whereas Marvel, their characters are us. They represent us if we could have powers, and they're flawed, and we can relate to them. And so each of them has a subjective appeal to different audiences. But anyways, I digress. I wasn't really a fan of DC, so this year I got into comics again through. I'm not going to go. If you watch my channel, I've explained it over and over again. But I got into comics again, actively collecting this year, and I am sickened at what Marvel is doing in the comic sphere. I just think they're a dumpster fire. I wouldn't recommend anyone look at Marvel comics. They're just, I mean, they were going downhill when I got out 25 years ago, but they are. I had no idea they'd be as bad as they are today. So I decided through the various influences that got me back in the comics that like DC would be a shot, and so I picked a couple of different books, and long story short is I'm discovering DC this year. This year has been a discovery process. So I come from a background of a lot of experience around comics and knowledge of comics, but just having a prejudicial and ignorance of DC. So you may say, well, why don't we want to listen to you, Ash? Well, you may not want to listen to me, but most people that are going to talk about DC comics or have a channel, like mine or whatever, they're going to be knowledgeable, and you can get, there's dozens of YouTubers out there I know that are experts at DC. But with that comes a lot of bias and a lot of, closed-mindedness, for lack of a better term. A lot of these longtime DC fans are just immobile. There's like, it's got to be this way. It's got to be like this. And one YouTuber I respect quite a bit is Professor Geek. He won't even see this film because to him it's not true. DC films aren't true to the characters, and he talks about this with Wonder Woman. He only saw Wonder Woman because he had to, but for the longest time he wouldn't see it because he didn't like. And to me, that's being too much of a stickler. He's free to do what he wants, and like I said, I highly respect the guy. I learned a lot from him and his channel, and if you haven't checked out his channel, it's really good. He does a great series on the different archetypes of characters. I love that. But I really disagree with him on the aspect of that these characters have to conform exactly the way because they don't do that in the comic books. The characters change drastically throughout the years. I mean, if you go back 30, 40 years ago, look how Superman differs from how he is today. Now I know if Professor Geek was listening to me, he'd be like, well, he would start lecturing me, trying to, and he can school me quite well on a lot of things. And I know that, yes, fundamentally the archetypes don't change much in a couple cases, but I do think some characters really do. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Just because you ascribe to a certain character and how they're designed through a certain point in time doesn't mean that a different iteration of that character is now somehow invalid. And I had to get over that when I watch like movie characters. There's an argument that he's made, and I'm really going down the rabbit hole here, about the Nolanverse Batman, which I'm a huge fan of, not really being Batman. It doesn't incorporate the detective at all or anything like that. I'm just like, well, so what? Like, you can have a character named Batman. I'm not going to go any further. This is going on too long. At least you got some cool visuals to watch with the trailers here. So, Aquaman. I loved this film. It was a joy to watch. I'm going to try not to spoil anything about the film, that's not in these trailers that you're watching here. It's a flawed film, however. I readily admit this is a flawed film. And I hear a lot of times people, because I can tend to be a film snob sometimes, and I'll get in debates with people where they're just like, "Oh, Ash, you just, you're too elitist or whatever it comes to films." Like sometimes we just want to like turn our brains off and watch a mindless action film, and I just like I hate that argument because it's like, no, I want to watch an action film. It doesn't have to be a cerebral film, you know, but I don't want a film that's going to insult my intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to show me a good popcorn, like, blockbuster action adventure film. So be it. It doesn't have to be super deep and moving or anything, but don't insult my intelligence. You can still have quality with lighthearted fare. And that is where Aquaman succeeds. Aquaman is a flawed film. There was a couple moments, well, several times during the film where I was kind of like wincing or groaning, where I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cheesy," or I didn't like how they did this cue and some line of dialogue or whatever things. But so what? It was all nitpicky things, and yes, it could be better. But as a whole, the sum of its parts, this film represents what a summer blockbuster, and it's not summer obviously, but the typical summer blockbuster adventure film should be. It's not deep. It's not trying to be really intelligent. It's just trying to be fun. But at the same time, it's not treating you or expecting you to just be an idiot and go, "Yeah, we'll just deliver stupidity on a platter, and you'll just be okay." And that's a problem that I have with a lot of films, like when all the Jurassic Park sequels, Jurassic Park 3 being the worst. Like, just I feel like you're just insulting my intelligence. You're just like, "Oh, this moron. Characters act stupid ways, and there's just no one wants to think about anything." And I just have real problems with that. And when people tell me, "Oh, Ash, just chill out and just enjoy it," I'm like, I can't enjoy it. It's stupid. I can't enjoy lighthearted, mindless, or low-minded, I guess. It's not, I don't want to be able to, like, not pay attention for a half an hour and still not miss anything. Like, that's just a bad film. So James Wan here, he crafts this, essentially a comic book on screen. That's the success of this film. This film, I listened to a couple of different critics or people critiquing the film before I decided to do this, because I just kind of wanted to hear what other people were saying to give me some ideas of what to address or talk about. And some of the naysayers, talking about like the writing being terrible or the acting being bad. And it's like, first of all, I don't think the writing is terrible. I thought it was, how do I say, it was very shallow in a lot of senses. That doesn't even sound right. That sounds pretty negative. It just wasn't a deep film, but it wasn't trying to be. There was no pretense. And the whole time I was watching this, I was like, wow, this just feels like I'm reading a comic book. It's just fun. And, seeing Jeff Johns' names in the credits as one of the writers, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Like, this is a guy who gets, obviously, DC Comics like no other. And I'm no expert. Like, I don't know the history of Aquaman. I know very little about Aquaman. So I can't tell you, like, oh, they did this character wrong, or they messed up this, or whatever. And I think we gotta be careful about running into ruts like this. We become the Simpsons comic book nerd, and we're just like, well, Aquaman is supposed to have a tattoo, right? I was like, who cares? Like, and I just made that up. I don't know what he's, but the silly things that don't matter. Christopher Nolan proved that you can radically change continuity. You can radically change histories and events of a character like Batman and make a phenomenal story, because what matters is that you capture the essence of the character that at least most people gravitate towards if you're not an uber comic scholar like Professor Geek. Um, you can capture that essence, and you can do things like make Bane part of the League of Shadows, which is not at all in the comics like that. Is just nowhere close to like what Bane is, but he did it so well, and in my opinion, I actually was like, wow, that's made Bane more interesting, because Bane I always thought was kind of shallow. A cool character, but very shallow. This gave him some depth, some purpose, some he tied more into the Batman lore, and it all worked for me. So Nolan, if you change things but you do it well and it serves a story and it's respecting the character, I guess that's the big thing. Change is okay. Where most movies fail is because they change things out of disrespect. You know, where they go like the Fantastic Four movie and say, oh, well, we can't do 100-foot tall alien that eats planets, that just, it won't, comic moviegoers will think it's silly and dumb, so we'll change him into this black cloud. And it's like, no, you didn't respect the material, and that's why it was stupid. When you change things out of respect to the material, you can make magic. And I borrowed someone else's video here. It's Film Select. Plug here. You can check them out for trailers and videos and things. I just wanted to give you some sort of background visual while I talked. James Wan respects the material. The writers respected the material. And they don't try to reinvent the wheel. They don't try to give us the most amazing, thought out sci-fi story with Aquaman. They just try to give us a superhero comic. Something you would sit down and have fun with, a character that's interesting and funny. It's got some charisma, and Jason Momoa has that. He starts off the film kind of a little bit too goofy for me. Like, not goofy, but just like an oaf. Like, he's just like, whatever, I'm an idiot, like, in Mara kind of plays that up, he's the dunce or whatever. But honestly, it's almost kind of an act. You find out that, this is kind of a spoiler, but not really. It's just there's more depth to his character than the movie lets on in the beginning. He kind of puts on this wall, and Mara kind of ends up, part of the story is breaking through that so that he can come to grips with himself on who he really is. But more importantly, what I liked is that the character of Aquaman was a hero. At all points in the film, there's different acts of different people are coming after him. Like, his brother Orm doesn't want him challenging the throne. You got the Black Manta, obviously one of Aquaman's biggest nemesis. He's going after him for various other reasons and stuff. And every time that Aquaman's like facing off in this conflict, he's always thinking about other people. When other people are in trouble, he's just naturally helping them. He's not thinking of himself as a hero. He knows he's got ability and power, and he doesn't like seeing people get hurt or suffer that can't, he can do something about it, so he does. And he's just a noble character. And I respected that. They didn't need to add super amounts of complexity and more depth to that, which in the beginning I was kind of looking for that and going, it feels kind of shallow. But honestly, it helped the story move along and just have a fun adventure with these characters that is really well paced. It has heart. By keeping his character simple, it kind of reminded me like the Rocky movies, Sylvester Stallone just wrote Rocky to be not a simpleton, but a simple man. And Arthur Curry in this movie is a simple man, at least in the beginning. This is an origin story of him accepting who he is. And it leaves lots of room for potential sequels to delve into the character deeper, if we will, and have internal conflicts and really get into the psyche of the character, which we didn't need in this film. Um, and I have to praise. I think it was the right choice. I've heard some people say that the film's too safe or whatever, and it's like, no, it's just fun. This is Aquaman, okay? It's not Gattaca, right? It's just Aquaman, and this is a movie that should not succeed. No one. I mean, one of my favorite TV shows of all time is Entourage, and if you haven't seen it, it's just about a movie star and his three buddies that are all from Queens. I think it's from Queens, and they end up, the movie star makes it big, so he brings his entourage to L.A. and they live out their life, his life, and then they're like, they kind of hang on him. But it's a fun comedy show. Anyways, during the show, this the main character gets an opportunity to star in James Cameron's Aquaman, which is a big film. It's like, of course, if James Cameron did Aquaman, it'd be tremendous. But it's all fictional, right? So, but the idea is done as like a tongue in cheek. It's like it's Aquaman. Like, yes, in the storyline, it's a huge hit and it's a big, of course, because James, they're not going to say, oh, James Cameron made a failure, but it's told in a way that you as the audience know that it would only be a hit in this fictional world. Like, we picked Aquaman because it's just kind of silly. Like, this wouldn't actually happen. No one's ever going to really actually make an Aquaman film. And but here we are, and we have Aquaman, and it's great. I enjoyed this. This is okay. I want to say objective things. Okay, this is my favorite of the DCEU films. Wonder Woman. A strong argument can be made that Wonder Woman is a better film when you look at just objective film craft. Patty Jenkins did a tremendous job. Everyone involved. I mean, it's a deeper film. But James Wan, I think, brought us a better comic book on screen. This is fun. This is wildly entertaining. And like I said, if you're not looking for the deepest of stories, you just want that adventure, this has it. Now, it does have flaws. I'm not going to try to kid you otherwise, and when you see it, you might be like me and have groaning moments and just be like, oh. And there's times where you just have to kind of suspend your disbelief and be like, that wouldn't work that way. But if you have not seen the film yet, and you do go see it, I encourage you to think about this way. Whenever you see some of these moments, like for me, well, here we go on the trailer, right, with the kids. This would not happen, right? You wouldn't see kids that are like 4 years older than this guy, bullying him like right in the middle of public, slamming up against. These are things that, I was like, oh, this is so cliche and silly, but it's like, would this happen in a comic book? And if it did happen in a comic book, would you be okay? Would you just look over it and not even bat an eyelash? And that's what I found myself saying yes to most everything. Everything that I was like, this is kind of corny and weird and sappy. But if it was drawn on a page, and would you have the same problem with it? And I would be like, no, I wouldn't have that. This would work on the comic book page. It's just because it's live action film, our minds tend to be less forgiving. It's got to be more realistic, and that's fair. I can't tell you how to judge your films or what you like or dislike, but try to, if you are a comic book fan, when you see this film, think of it like a comic book. If this were animated, even just think of it. Would it be more forgivable? A lot of these things and I think you'll find that you'll be like, yeah, this wouldn't have been that big of a deal. And I just see it as fun. So I've been blathering about this for a while. A lot of the YouTubers and comic book fans, whatever, have all seen this film before me. I'm late to the party, I know, but I don't have any comic reviews, and I was just so stoked during this film. There's so many parts that subjectively reached out to me that I won't really go over right now because they're kind of personal, and everyone has their own subjective reactions. But I love this film. It's it it's just fun, and hopefully, if you haven't seen it, you'll go see it. This film does deserve, you know, the box office revenue. It needs to be a success. It's a well done film, and it's a visual spectacle. Seeing on the big screen, uh, get a bucket of popcorn and a Coke, and just sit back and have, it's like almost 2.5 hours long, and just have fun with it. This is the kind of thing, we talk about a popcorn flick. Aquaman is it. Um, it's I would give it about 4 out of 5 stars, only because, like I said, it is flawed. But I'm gonna definitely be buying this, watching it again. It's the most fun of all the DCEU films, and there you go. So I guess put in the comments why I'm wrong, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me. And if you do agree with me, hey, that's cool too. Like oh, look at this scene. Oh man, that part is so cool. Um, I'm sure everyone has seen this. If you're even listening to me, you're just probably listening to see if what my opinion of the film was, and so forth, or you're just bored out of your mind, and you just want to fill your fill the your area around with noise because you hate silence. So I've talked long enough. Oh, by the way, Mara, man, yeah. All right. Oh, that reminds me. Got to talk about this. Um, like, geez, Ash, you just won't shut up. I know, but I always forget. I always think I'm going to talk about this, and then I don't. SJWs, right? It's a big deal in Hollywood. We always hearing about how, like, Captain Marvel is, where what they did with Star Wars, and everyone's bitching about all their favorite movies being affected by the SJW influence, and how everything's getting woke and stuff like that. Let me just tell you, this film is not that. I was watching, there was just a couple scenes in the film where I was just like, oh yeah, this is a film that dudes can like love. Like, the main character gets to be a dude, and express being a man. Like, there's a couple of moments where Mara's kind of doing the cliche, like, oh, I'm the smart woman, and if it weren't for me, you'd be an oaf and lost. But it's very minimal. It's reined in, and like in Aquaman does shine, which I was kind of worried about. I was like, oh, please don't let her just be babysitting him all the time. She's just bringing out his strength, which is I loved, because I believe the strength in women is one of the strengths of a good, strong woman is to make her man stronger. I think men, when they have a strong woman, they're held back with various insecure. I'm not going to go into all this stuff, but these two like complement each other, and there's just a moment in the film where I'm not spoiling anything. Okay, the Mara ends up becoming Aquaman's wife if you're a comic fan. Okay, so obviously there's going to be the love interest here. When it happens, it's just like, oh yeah, it's give me some sugar baby, like, it's all masculine, and Jason Momoa doesn't have an ounce of estrogen coming out of him. This is no soy. So I was so happy. I was like watching this and just being like, oh my god, as a kid, I would just, as a boy, this is a movie that boys want to see. And we talk about the comic book industry, being like a boys industry, and it has been. It doesn't mean that we don't want women, or that we want to be bigoted to, or anything like that. No, it's just that it was something designed to appeal to boys, like Barbies were designed to appeal to girls. If a boy wants to play with Barbie, whatever, like, okay, we're not going to stop him, but let's just face facts. And this movie, I believe, will appeal to guys and girls, but it's definitely, you can see the aspects of it that fall in line with that tradition of comic books appealing to boys. And yes, so kudos to that. I was like, wow. in the midst of all this getting woke, going broke nonsense, James Wan had none of that. It was just Arthur Curry is a man's man. So hopefully this movie succeeds, and it gets your attention. See it once, see a matinee. If you don't want to, you're like, I don't like to spend money at the theaters, whatever. I get it. Theater ticket prices are ridiculous. But see it once. And I can't stop talking about it. You're like, I have this problem. I'm just so long-winded. I'm sorry. That's why I have this YouTube video YouTube channel, so that I can sit here and just blather. And you can stop at any time, or you can just put it on while you're washing dishes or doing whatever. And yeah, thanks for watching. I do want to hear what you have to say. I've watched everyone. If you have a video, if you do your own channel, you have a video. I'll watch that. And Happy New Year.